I've been doing bodybuilding comparisons on YouTube for over 5 years now, and I've also been watching other channels doing it years before that as well. And whether you like it or not, Ronnie Coleman at the 2003 Mr. Olympia has never been defeated in a comparison. I know some of you still prefer his more streamlined versions from the late 90s, but bodybuilding is still the name of the game. It's not about beauty. Objectively speaking, 2003 would dwarf any of those versions with tens of extra pounds of muscle. But anyway, only other versions of the king come close to defeating his 03 version indeed. It's also become pretty clear for most fans that the second best ever in terms of physique is Phil the Gift Heath in his prime. And even though Ronnie versus Phil, both in their prime, is an interesting matchup, Ronnie still always wins. So I figured I should do something fun in this video. I'm gonna have Phil Heath at his nearest to perfection version from the 2011 Mr. Olympia, but give him Hadi Choopan's midsection, arguably one of the best, if not the best ever. Let's see if Phil Heath with Hadi Choopan's midsection could defeat 2003 Ronnie Coleman. Front double biceps, and if we're switching back to Phil with his own midsection, we can see that looking at him and Ronnie separately, you can find arguments for Phil as well. I mean, his arms are more complete, he's complete from head to toe, not missing anything, his overall flow is better than Ronnie's, and even Phil's midsection is better than Ronnie's too. But when you look at them side by side, Ronnie is just too freaking much in terms of size, man. That's why 2003 is so dominant. For the 1998 and 1999 fans, Ronnie himself said he was under 250 pounds, not much heavier than Phil, and considering Phil has a smaller frame, I don't think those versions of him would be as dominant as 2003 here. Now, it's not only about size with Ronnie, he still has the freakier arms with those crazy peaky biceps, huge quads, plus that paper-thin skin. My idea is that if they had similar statures, it would still be close. It's not only about size, but when Ronnie has all that extra size, it makes things a bit easier. Now, if we give Phil Hadi's incredible midsection with a vacuum, things become a little more interesting. Phil doesn't get the extra mass to match Ronnie, but he changes the narrative here, looking like a classic physique mass monster. Even though Ronnie is still considerably bigger, Phil is big enough himself, but he's also very aesthetic. I'm convinced that at least with modern day judging criteria where distended midsections aren't tolerated as much as before, Phil would take the lead in this pose. Front lat spread is next, and Phil's issue isn't the midsection here. His midsection is actually one of the best in the front lat spread since he's flexing his abdominals. Just a few athletes did or do this in the front lat spread. Now of course, Hadi's midsection is always better than Phil's, but no midsection in the world could help Phil's case here. Don't get me wrong, despite his narrower structure, he still has a great front lat. However, Ronnie looks monstrous here. There are some levels that simply make anything else negligible, like Ronnie's level of freaking muscularity in this pose right here. Now, I know there are other top-notch front lats in the history of the sport, like Dorian Yates, Big Ramy, or even Andrew Jack. However, Ronnie is simply too massive here. I don't know about the others, but Phil has no chance here, regardless of the midsection. Let's continue with the rest of the front poses where we have Hadi's midsection involved. Next, we have the abs and thighs. Even with Phil's own abdominals, he still has a good chance against Ronnie. However, even though Ronnie doesn't have the most pleasing abs, Phil doesn't excel at this either. Phil's abs are still better but not considerably. And everywhere else, Ronnie still dominates with the extra size and freakiness. Now, Ronnie also suffers from a wide waist, not only unaesthetic abs. So if Phil were to push the envelope by getting Hadi Choopan's midsection, I think we can say for sure that this pose would go to the gift. Ronnie is still bigger, but unlike the front lat spread, he's simply not better, so Phil Heath wins 2 of the 3 front poses so far. But we still have one more front pose, the most muscular. In the crab variation, the abs aren't too visible, and if we look at Phil in this shot, they're actually not visible at all. Here, Ronnie is still bigger, but I think it's pretty safe to say that Phil is better, but this may not be Ronnie's best most muscular variation, so let's try this. Now we have a hands on hips for Ronnie and a hands clasped for Phil. Phil still dominates the guns overall, with the fuller shoulders, better triceps, longer biceps, plus the forearms, But we can notice that aside from the midsection, Ronnie is still maybe too powerful. He's got the wider frame, he dominates the chest and the lower body with size and detail, so I'm sure people would still go with Ronnie. Now, it's not like Phil's midsection is the issue here, but if we gave him Hadi's midsection, I think the difference in the abs and core would be too much to go against Phil here. Ronnie's waist was simply too relaxed. I'd go with Phil in the most muscular overall, making him win 3 poses out of the 4 front poses. Obviously, Phil would win the side triceps, which I believe is actually Ronnie's weakest pose and Phil's strongest. Not even the biggest Colemanite would give this to Ronnie. We don't even need Hadi's abs. This pose goes to Phil in dominant fashion, making Phil win his 4th pose in this comparison. He only needs 1 more pose to defeat Ronnie Coleman in this comparison, which indeed is just for fun, giving Phil an extra boost with Hadi Choopan's midsection. Side chest pose is next. This is a side pose obviously, and the midsection is also covered by the arms, so I'm not gonna do anything to it. All I can say is that again, standing on their own, Phil may check more boxes when it comes to this pose, but standing side by side, Ronnie just looks too massive and more polished. Careful, I'm not claiming Phil is less conditioned, it's simply that Ronnie had that thinner skin that made his muscles look extra defined, so the side chest is close, but I'd have Ronnie Coleman winning it, so 4-2 in favor of Phil before the back poses. Let's see the back lat spread first, and it's a little harder for Phil in the lat spread poses because he had those narrower shoulders, and against a tank like Ronnie, it's even more obvious. Ronnie simply has the larger bone structure, and with his 2003 Olympia version, that frame is packed with even more muscle than Phil's smaller frame. I'm sure you guys get what I mean here. Bodybuilding is a comparison game after all, and even though standing by themselves they both look like the best of all time, standing next to each other, Ronnie is just too much for Phil Heath. And for anybody else, for that matter, Ronnie clearly dominates Phil side by side in the back lat spread, but I purposely left the back double for the end because there we might have another story. 4-3 for Phil before the back double. In the back double biceps, Phil looks perfect, but Ronnie is freakier. Objectively speaking, Phil has the better and more balanced back and also the more balanced lower body, but Ronnie has the wow factor with the extra mass and bigger structure that you simply cannot go against. It's like Beauty vs the Beast, but the Beast is just too mean here, man. And for those who think I'm a Ronnie fanboy, well, I might be, but I actually like Phil even more. Phil is my favorite bodybuilder ever, but being objective, Ronnie cannot lose this pose to him here. It's like if you carefully analyzed every detail, Phil could win the pose easily, but your eyes are just drawn to the freakiest mass monster of all time. Ronnie Coleman, he's just too big, too lean, and too freaky. So Ronnie wins and makes the final score 4-4. So Phil Heath won the front double, the side triceps, the abs and thighs, and the most muscular, while Ronnie won the front lat spread, side chest, back double biceps, and back lat spread. I believe that if we had these two physiques on a bodybuilding stage in real life, Ronnie would be so impressive with his extra mass, but Phil would be simply perfect. He was near perfection already in 2011, but having Hadi's midsection with a vacuum and perfect control at all times, unlike Ronnie, I believe it would be enough for a judging panel to go with Phil the Gift Heath.